Donald Trump makes his first visit to the White House as president-elect.
Mr. President, it was a great honor being with you.
Watch his historic meeting in the Oval Office. And we're on Capitol Hill, where Trump meets with top Republicans to outline his agenda.
Not my president, not today!
Anger in the streets. Anti-Trumpers protest across the country. And lasting legacy, a Supreme Court scholar tells us what to expect. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly for November 10th, 2016. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We witnessed an historic moment at the White House today. President-elect Donald Trump met President Obama for the first time. In an hour-and-a-half meeting without staff, they vowed to work together on a smooth transition. This comes on the heels of insulting each other on the campaign trail. Donald Trump today called the president a very good man.
Well, I just had the opportunity to have an excellent conversation with President-elect Trump. It was wide-ranging. We talked about some of the organizational issues in setting up a White House. We talked about foreign policy. We talked about domestic policy. And as I said last night, my number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful. And I have been very encouraged by the, I think, interest in President-elect Trump's wanting to work with my team around many of the issues that this great country faces. And I believe that it is important for all of us, regardless of party and regardless of political preferences, to now come together, work together to deal with the many challenges that we face. So we now are going to want to do everything we can to help you succeed, because if you succeed, then the country succeeds. Please.
Well, thank you very much, President Obama. This was a meeting that was going to last for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and we were just going to get to know each other. We had never met each other. I have great respect. The meeting lasted for almost an hour and a half, and it could have, as far as I'm concerned, it could have gone on for a lot longer. We really, we discussed a lot of different situations, some wonderful and some difficulties. I very much look forward to dealing with the president in the future, including counsel. He's explained some of the difficulties, some of the high-flying assets, and some of the really great things that have been achieved. So, Mr. President, it was a great honor being with you, and I look forward to being with you many, many more times in the future.
Trump will now be given the exact intelligence briefings given to the president. On Capitol Hill, House Speaker Paul Ryan says the Trump victory is going to unify the GOP, and that is where we find Jason Calvi, fresh off of the campaign trail. Jason.
Yeah, Lauren, Donald Trump had several meetings here at the Capitol. He's now left, but we were along with him for the journey. We'll show you some video right now of his visit here. Before he left, though, he spoke very briefly with reporters, laying out his legislative priorities for a Trump White House. The president-elect, Mrs. Trump, and Vice President-elect Pence, protected by a Secret Service motorcade, came to Capitol Hill for 2 meetings today. After their meeting with Speaker Paul Ryan, the speaker showed Trump, Melania, and Pence the speaker's balcony, a view where the inauguration stage is already being built right now, and that's where Donald Trump will become President Trump. Speaker Ryan calls his meeting with Trump fantastic and productive. Then the president-elect next met with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Governor Pence did leave that meeting early, and after the meeting, Donald Trump spoke very briefly with reporters.
We're going to look very strongly at immigration. We're looking at border. We're going to look very strongly at health care, and we're looking at jobs, big league jobs.
The audio there was pretty poor, but Donald Trump says his legislative priorities are immigration, health care, and then jobs. He said big league focus on jobs. Lauren?
You know, Governor Pence was there. Did you get a chance to interact with him? Did he say anything to journalists?
Yeah, he left the meeting early with the Majority Leader McConnell. He was asked how did the meeting go. He smiled at us reporters. He pointed over at us, but then he quickly walked away. We do know, Lauren, that he's going to be staying in office as governor of Indiana all the way through the end of the term, which is about a week and a half before he becomes Vice President Pence.
Well, they're quickly learning how to duck the press, which is a Washington tried and true tradition. Jason, what's on the agenda for Trump for the rest of the week?
Well, we know there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. Today, I was able to speak with a major pro-life leader here in Washington, D.C., who says that congressional leaders as well as pro-life leaders and other groups are meeting privately with the Trump transition team. They're laying out the priorities for the first 100 days of Trump's White House, and I'm told the pro-life leaders are making their cases to the Trump team and are being heard by the Trump team on those issues.
All right, Jason Calvi, thank you so much, reporting from Capitol Hill. In a time when the number of religiously unaffiliated is rising, it seems the Catholic vote helped decide the election. Pew Research's preliminary analysis says white, born-again, or evangelical Christians and white Catholics strongly supported Donald Trump. Exit polls show Trump won the Catholic vote by 7 points. That's a big shift from 2012 when President Obama won the Catholic vote by a 2-point margin. The Pew Research Center says this is the 4th straight election that Catholics have voted for the winning candidate. The head of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops pledges to work with the Trump administration. Archbishop Joseph Kurtz says every election brings a new beginning and God will give us the strength to heal and unite. Kurtz also says we should pray for leaders in public life that they may rise to the responsibilities entrusted to them with grace and courage. And may all of us as Catholics help each other be faithful and joyful witnesses to the healing love of Jesus. In this divided America, protests fan out across the country.
Donald Trump has got to go!
Demonstrators in Oakland, California were arrested for disobedience and vandalism. Similar protests took place in Philadelphia, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Some shouting, "Not my president," and burning American flags. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani says he's qualified to be Attorney General. Other names floated for cabinet positions include former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich and neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson. All have been staunch and loyal surrogates for Trump.
I certainly have the energy, and there's probably nobody that knows the Justice Department better than me.
Donald Trump promised on the campaign trail to appoint conservative justices in the mold of Antonin Scalia, and he could have the chance to appoint up to 3 other judges. Joining me right now, John Malcolm, a senior legal fellow with the Heritage Foundation. Welcome to the program, John.
Pleasure to be with you, Lauren.
Thank you so much. You know, we have heard over and over again, especially as Catholics, that the reason to vote for Donald Trump is because of the Supreme Court. Do you feel like that tipped the scales in favor of Donald Trump?
Well, the Supreme Court is certainly at a dividing point on a number of issues that the public cares about a lot, religious liberty being front and center for that. Donald Trump, of course, put out a list of people that he would consider nominating to Supreme Court vacancies. And this was very, very important in terms of assuring conservatives, and particularly people in the conservative legal community, that he was going to look at this issue soberly, and he came up with a very, very impressive list.
So let's talk about that list a little bit. You've got Bill Pryor on there. You have Dianne Sykes, Don Willett. You even have a junior senator from Utah, Mike Lee. Who is your favorite, odds-on favorite, and why?
Well, it's hard to pick an odds-on favorite, and certainly conservative lawyers are now talking amongst themselves. All of the people on the Trump list are very, very well qualified. I had put out my own list on behalf of the Heritage Foundation. I had only 8 names on my list. 6 of those 8 names are on the Trump list, and if I had had a more expansive list, other names on the Trump list would have been on my list too. You mentioned Bill Pryor and Dianne Sykes. They're certainly going to be at the top of the list, in my view. Bill Pryor's on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and Dianne Sykes on the 7th Circuit. She also at one time was on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. These are very, very eminent jurists who will certainly follow in the mold of an Antonin Scalia.
You know, the appointment is part of his 100-day plan. No question about it. And I heard somebody say that Obama's choice for the Supreme Court, Merrick Garland, was going to be an answer to a Trivial Pursuit question now, right? And we also heard Donald Trump say immigration, jobs, important issues to him. Where do you think the Supreme Court appointments fall within those 100 days?
Well, it ought to be right up there front and center. The court is operating a little bit at a deficit at the moment with only 8 justices. There are a number of contentious cases that the court has already decided to hear involving church-state issues. There's a case out of Missouri involving a Lutheran church. There are 2 redistricting cases. There's the transgender bathroom case out of Virginia. Those are issues that are likely to closely divide the court, and having another conservative justice over there could tip the scales.
Excellent. John Malcolm, thank you so much. We hope you'll come back to the program from the Heritage Foundation.
Thanks for having me on.
Coming up, reaction from Mexico, a south of the border view on building a wall. The Holy Father says Christian unity is one of his greatest concerns. He made the comment before the Vatican Council dedicated to promoting dialogue among Christians. Pope Francis has reached out to other Christian leaders. Most recently, he visited Sweden for the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Cubans worry a Trump presidency will reverse hopes for the end of an embargo with the U.S. The communist Cuban government announced 5 days of military drills to prepare troops to confront, quote, a range of actions by the enemy. Mexico's president called Donald Trump to congratulate him on his win hours after the United States elected Donald Trump as the next president. Mexico began carefully laying the groundwork for a relationship with a new leader. That leader campaigned against Mexicans and threatened to wreak havoc on its economy. President Enrique Peña Nieto says he now is ready to work with Trump. On Wednesday, he tweeted, Mexico and the United States are friends, partners, and allies that must continue collaborating for the competitiveness and development of North America. Joining me now from Mexico City is journalist Rodolfo Bermejo. In February, Pope Francis said that building walls is not a Christian thing to do. They had a little spat. An Associated Press exit poll here, though, says just 1 in 10 voters believe that immigration is the most important issue facing our country. If building the wall isn't the answer, as the Mexican people seem to believe, to the immigration issue, what do you think is?
See, it is funny because there is a lot of ignorance about the wall. There is a wall already. There is a wall that goes most of the border already. So he wanted to use this issue of the wall to try to say, we are not going to allow any immigrants here. Now, that's a point, and I think it's fair enough from the legal point of view. But reality shows us otherwise. Reality needs a lot of the Mexican and South American and Latin American and Guatemalan and Honduras and so on, not only Mexicans, who go there and work and do a lot of things that basically require a lot of hardworking issues and stamina that most of the American people will not do, and I understand that.
But Rodolfo, there is not a wall. There is a border with many holes in it.
Oh yeah, okay, I got your point. Because there are some places and walls and there is stuff. Now that will not stop Mexicans to go in there. That will not stop people to go there. And as you know, and you know there are some walls in some places. There are also some tunnels, and people use those tunnels to cross and to cross merchandise also and drugs and other things. So at the end of the day, like the question is, do you think the wall will stop them? I don't really think so, because there is a need, and there are people willing to pay our workers to go there.
All right. So if the wall isn't the answer, then what is? What can the Mexican government do in conjunction with the United States to make this immigration problem into the United States disappear, this illegal immigration problem?
Okay, there are several options, some of them that are already working. And there are several proposals that the Mexican government has done and has made to the U.S. government, not to Trump and not to Obama, even before that, even in the time of Bush, but they have not been accepted by the Congress.
What are they?
Basically, I will tell you one. There is a good number, like 25,000 immigrants, Mexican immigrants that work throughout the summer in Canada every year. and they give them temporary visa. It's a visa that they allows them to go and work. And after 3 months, they're supposed to come back. And you know what? 25,000 people go up and down every year since around 10 years ago, and it works very well.
But what happens here in the United States, and I've seen it happen, is that the people come in and then do not go back. They keep staying despite the visa that runs out.
Exactly. That's a big problem because, see, most of these people, they want to come back. This is their home. They would like to come and see their family. They would like to come and stay here for Christmas and so on. But they don't have any assurance they will be given another visa or they will be given a chance to go back and work, which is basically why they went there.
I understand, but there is a process in place where people can apply for green cards and people can then apply to become citizens of the United States. It seems to me that the issue of illegal immigration is that people do not want to go through that lengthy process. Therefore, they ignore it.
I'm not sure. I think most of them, they try to go through the lengthy process. And you know how much is that lengthy process? It takes years,
I
almost
know.
8 to 10 years.
I do know that, yes.
So obviously, if it's going to take 8 to 10 years to start waiting for a work to happen, or they need to pay every weekend, they need to pay some food, and they need to pay some things. I'm not in favor of illegal immigration. I'm the first one who's not. And I can tell you, my sister is there and has been already waiting in those 8 years. Thanks be to God, we are able to sustain, and my brother-in-law is able to sustain a family because they have some investments there, but they've been waiting on that. Most of the people we're talking about, they don't. They need to work and they need to get things done for the weekend, medicines and food and stuff. I'm sure that law has to change and that has to be revised. I'm not an expert, but I'm sure there has to be some ways to make it happen because we need to work. They need the workers, and it's a win-win situation if we see it like that, not if we see it as a hurdle.
I think we're going to have to leave it there. I think we could go back and forth all day long. Mexican journalist Rodolfo Bermejo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for taking care of us.
Up next, media fail. Why so many journalists and pollsters couldn't predict the election. And Rick Santorum describes his first meeting with Donald Trump and their mutual concern about blue-collar workers. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Donald Trump came to Washington today as president-elect. His election will bring a seismic shift in the power corridors of this city, especially as Republicans control both House and Senate. Bob Cusack is editor-in-chief at The Hill and joins us now, as he did on election night. Nice to see you.
Yes, this is quite a thing, isn't it?
It certainly is. You know, and the Republican Party is still very divided between the Trump change machine and the establishment. And we saw everyone playing nice in the sandbox today. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, everybody saying we're going to work together, even President Obama, they were there. What do you think, though, that we can expect from Capitol Hill during this transition process?
Well, the one thing is that you look at Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan and Donald Trump. Yes, different personalities, not the best of friends, certainly with the president-elect. But on policies, generally speaking, they agree. Cutting regulation, tax reform, maybe not trade. But I think on policies they can get along and get some stuff done. And they have the votes to do it. They can ram through stuff through the Senate that only needs 51 votes. Not everything will need 60. And the House, obviously, a comfortable majority for Paul Ryan as Speaker.
Is Paul Ryan out?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
I think they've kissed and made up, and
it's good.
It'll be fine.
You know, I was noticing Trump did not allow reporters on his plane this morning when he left New York on his way to Washington, D.C. Is this a harbinger of things to come for the media?
Absolutely. I think that
Okay.
the way things have been done at the White House, they're going to rewrite the rules. And if they're picking fights with the media, well, the media is not popular, so be it. And he got to the White House by picking fights with the media. So the rules that applied to Obama are certainly not going to apply to Donald Trump. And remember, these press pools have to follow the president everywhere. Maybe not under Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're putting it very nicely. He can't stand us.
Oh, no, can't stand, yeah,
He
absolutely.
can't stand the media, right? Throughout this campaign, I have to ask you, you have been very confident that Clinton is going to
absolutely.
take over, take off. She's going to win, nothing at all. And you need to be criticized, as do every other pundit and reporter, for getting it wrong. Why, though, did the media get it so wrong? What was it?
Well, now I know how weathermen feel, because they're always wrong. Anyway, I think that it is a point of self-reflection of, on Election Day, you could see a path, and barely to get to 270, but he had to win all these states. And so the chances looked like she was going to win. And not only was that wrong, he barreled through her blue wall in the Rust Belt. So I think it is a point of self-reflection. And remember, most polls were wrong, but not all of them. Some
You're
were
right.
on.
Some people did get it right. All right, Bob Cusack, always fun to have you. Editor-in-Chief at The Hill. Thanks so much. Former Senator and presidential candidate Rick Santorum tells me about his first meeting with Donald Trump years ago. It involved Santorum's book, Blue Collar Workers, and a bit of bluffing. We spoke to Santorum yesterday, just hours after learning the election results. Joining me now is former Pennsylvania Senator and former presidential candidate Rick Santorum. Thanks for being with us. Tell me about your relationship with Donald Trump.
It's actually an interesting relationship. I had a couple of interactions with him. Actually, not particularly pleasant.
Okay.
Not bad, but early, probably in 2012, I had one with him where he was sort of critical of me on television, and so I called him and said, hey, let's.
I'm not a bad guy.
Let's lay this all out, and we actually ended up in a good place. And then the second time, he actually reached out to me. He heard me on the radio and reached out to me and said, hey, if you're ever in New York, I want to see you. I said, okay. And so like a couple months later, I happened to be in New York, and so I called him. We set up a meeting. I walk into his office with my daughter, Sarah Maria, who at the time was 17. And he's sitting behind his desk, and he's holding a copy of a book I had published maybe 2 or 3 months before called Blue Collar Conservative.
Listen to this.
And I walk in, and he's holding this book, and he said, I read your book. I said, you didn't.
calling BS on that, right?
Yeah, I'm calling BS on that. And so I'm walking toward his desk, and he's sitting there, and he says, no, it's a great book, right? It's great. He said,
Big league.
He said, it's great. I said, look, you didn't, I don't believe you read my book.
Right.
And he said, no, it's exactly he said, I did, and it's exactly the problem that's confronting this country. He said that working men and women are getting stiffed. And we need to have a platform, and we need to have a policy that goes out and helps working men and women in this country who are falling behind. And we had a discussion in his office, not hours, but we had a discussion for 5-10 minutes. First, I had to test whether he actually read the book.
Right. So you asked. So, did you remember on page 12
there's
when I said?
There's a fictional family that runs through the book, and so I asked him. I said, "So what's the name of the fictional family?"
Oh man. So, you are something else.
And he knew it. So
okay.
So I, whether the Cliff Notes that someone read it and gave it to him included the name, I don't know.
So
but
wait a second.
He
so
knew enough.
Go back here. I think what you're saying is you are responsible for the Donald Trump president that we have today.
I think Donald Trump recognized something in my book. I mean, I don't think he read the book and said, "Hey, why would he have read the book in the first place?"
Right, because he had that interest.
Right. I mean, he read the book because he said, maybe this speaks to what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't take credit. Donald Trump's if he's anything, if you look at his business career, he assesses a market, understands a market, and then provides a product that people want to buy for that market.
And you know what?
And that's what he
did.
did.
They bought it, and they bought it last night.
And he assessed the market out there. He saw the problems that are going on in America. The fact that in the last 20 years, wages have gone up at a slower rate than any 20-year period of time in American history. Median income continues to fall. And folks feel like, real estate prices are up, stock prices are up.
And nobody's paying attention to them.
Nobody's paying attention to the little guy. You got immigration coming in, it's crowding out jobs, you got trade deals, and Trump hit that, and that's why he's the president today.
Okay. Senator Rick Santorum, thanks for your stories about Donald Trump, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Well, that does it for us for tonight. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Good night, and God bless.